How's it going, my friends? I am Ryan Rhoades with Reformation Designs and the Creative Revolution podcast. And today I'm going to be interviewing my friend Carl John, and we're going to be talking about the transformative power of intention and creativity. This is the Creative Revolution podcast, season 2, episode 4, and we're going live right now. Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Rhoades with Reformation Designs, and you are watching the Creative Revolution podcast. You might also be listening to it, depending on how you're consuming this content. But today I am talking with my friend Carl John, and we are going to be talking all about the transformative power of intention and creativity and how you can tap into your own intuition and really bring your own ideas to life and lean into your art, your business, whatever it is that you're trying to make happen. So, Carl, first and foremost, thank you for being here today. How are you, sir?
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I'm doing fantastic today.
Awesome. So we are live on Facebook. That's where we're recording this. So if you guys are watching on Facebook, go ahead and say hello, leave a comment. I want to just make sure that we have all of this tech stuff on. Brent Metcalf has joined. He's my good friend and tech genius illustrator extraordinaire. So thank you for hanging out with us today. So Carl, why don't you talk a little bit about, before we kind of get into some of the questions that I have for you here, why don't you talk a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, and how you kind of got started doing all of that?
Well, my name's Carl John, and I'm a transformational healer, artist, author, musician. And how I got started on that was really, an interesting story of transformation. I am currently in Las Vegas visiting my parents, and that's where part of my story started. I was a real estate developer, financier, owned a restaurant gaming bar in Las Vegas. Married, kids, bought a house in Taos, New Mexico, where I really was picking up guitar and finding my artistic heart, was getting into Eastern philosophies and quantum physics and watching What the Bleep Do We Know and starting to look at the world differently. Fast forward a little bit, 2008 rolls around, there's a downturn in the economy, the market sees up, I go through a divorce, custody battle, all kinds of things with a new baby, a toddler, and I go from looking at retirement or what I'm going to do next, having had created my life, becoming self-made in one area, and becoming wiped out. Right before that, I had mentioned, I had a gaming lounge,
Right.
lounge in Vegas. It was called, oddly enough, Vox, voice in Latin. And I had played my first show ever there, being nudged by some friends. And so it brought out this thing in me that I always wanted to try, always wanted to do as a child, my whole life, and never had anybody say that I had a decent voice, anything else before that moment. Played to a packed house, felt completely alive. So when the downturn happened and everything went sideways on me, and I went from 4 houses to sleeping on an army cot.
Wow.
I went, well, if everything I read in these books was true, right? In the law of attraction and living as if and stepping into your power in this way, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to try this and live as if.
Right.
And in that moment, I made a decision and powerfully stepped into being this new person. And within a couple of months, I had recorded my first song out of Austin, Texas, with an artist by the name of Jamie Lynn Wilson, who accompanied on it.
So were you just doing the vocals at that time, or were you playing a musician or a musical instrument?
I played guitar.
Okay.
I played guitar. I sung. I hadn't written my first song yet, so this was something that somebody else had written. But that one thing led to the next thing, which was a video that I shot, which led to the next thing, which was playing at a friend's party which led to the next thing of me getting invited to a bigger gig, which landed me on stage opening for Robin Thicke at the Venetian big red carpet gala, which led me to being in Nashville, which led me to winning a Hollywood Music Award. One thing led to the other.
Right.
And what became powerful to me in this process was more than about the art, was about that we are living in a way that we shouldn't be living, or at least I certainly was. And I look at the we too, you know, and that you know, that we can manifest whatever we're looking to create in our life. And so now I work with people regarding that, in making transformational changes in their lives.
Very cool. So in terms of, you know, what it was like for you, and just some of the mental things that you kind of have to go through whenever you're, you know, asking yourself those hard questions, whenever, like you said, whenever the economy turned around and you went from where you were to where you ended up, you know, how did you, and this is something that I like to ask a lot of other artists and entrepreneurs and people who've kind of done a number of different things, how do you deal with the inevitable resistance and the what a lot of people will call the imposter syndrome, like the whole, you know, who do I think I am concept, you know, and does it ever completely go away? Because at least for me and everyone I've ever talked to, anytime you're kind of doing some new thing, there's always that feeling, at least so far in my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. The imposter syndrome.
Like, I don't want to give it, you know, this like artificial power, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying that. It's more of like a, you know, everyone I've talked to, it doesn't matter if they're like a business owner, or if they're running a nonprofit, if they're an artist or an author or whatever. It's like at some level, you know, we all kind of deal with that. And so everybody kind of has little tricks and different things that they do to navigate it. So I'm kind of curious on that for you.
Yeah, well, for me, and this has to do with my own practice and my own studies, and it's not identifying with the external ego, the identity that I created, but more identifying with the eternal me, where I am nobody and nothing at the same time. And I get out of my own way and just do what is right now. You know, am I an imposter? Yeah, we all are, because we're all creating out of nothing, right? So it's not actually true until it is. You know,
yeah.
I had a belief in who I was, and then the rest of the world accepted it as so. Right. But as soon as you believe the chatter that you're not this, you don't deserve that, then that is also true.
Right. And you won't take action. It's kind of like you'll act according to how you believe about yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, if you say I'm a musician, well, a musician plays, you know, music, you know, I'm a writer writes, you know, and whether you are accepted in terms of this is your vocation, this is your livelihood, you know, that may come, that may go, you know, but the truth of you being a writer is still the same, because you're in the process of doing it every day, being it, living as if.
Right. Yeah. Can you, so for those who for those who aren't maybe familiar with that term, can you extrapolate on that a little bit?
Which term?
The living as if concept.
Oh, living as if is, you know, fake it till you make it. It's truly embodying the being of what you are, walking in that future self, being. So it's, you know, it was really hard for me in the beginning, because I was well known as a businessman, right? You know, I sat on boards, I was well known in this world in this way. And when I decided, no, I am this, okay? And the funny thing is, I was still that too. I mean, I'm still a businessman, still an entrepreneur, but for that moment, this is who I'm choosing to be, right? And you have to walk as if, and everybody thinks you're going through a, you know, It depends on at what age you are, about a midlife crisis or, change in life, or maybe they're on a lot of drugs. I don't know.
Right.
There's something going on that isn't right because I don't know who this person is, right? But that's okay, because there's that moment that you have that you were a caterpillar, you see yourself as a butterfly, but there's that in-between moment of nothingness. You're not quite the caterpillar, you're not quite the butterfly, and you can't quite crack open the cocoon yet. You have to be in that area of not knowing for a minute longer, right? And you have to embody that knowing. You have to see yourself as that future self, walk as that future self, live as that, own it yourself, and the rest of the world will identify you as that as well.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, just from my own experience recently, I published my second book back at the end of July, and I published my first book back in 2014, and it's taken me almost 4 years from publishing my first book to actually putting on my business cards and on my website, oh, I'm an author. And it's weird because of that. It's like, I've been writing for years. I've been, publishing things for years. I've worked in the publishing industry for a long time, but it was this like weirdly agonizing experience to, on my newest business cards and things, because I'll network with people and go and connect with people, because with our design agency and whatever, we're still kind of in this interesting spot where I would love to be doing this type of thing on a more regular basis. That's why I'm doing it weekly. And I'd love that to, open up more opportunities for us. But in the interim period, I'm still kind of, taking on web design clients and things like that. But I had that moment where I'm designing these business cards, and I'm like, wow, like anytime I go and meet new people or go into a new environment, like they don't know me as anyone. So like you said, it's on you to act as if you are the person that you want to be and that you want to present yourself as. But if you haven't nailed that down and figured out what that even is, you kind of stay in this weird limbo stage. And I see a lot of people, a lot of artists who kind of are stuck in that, where, I mean, I know for me, like I was literally changing text in Photoshop, like, what do I want this to say as my title? So I finally settled on, author, speaker, and say again.
I said, "Who am I?"
Right. And it's funny, the guy that I'm interviewing next week, he's worked with NASA. He's done all kinds of cool stuff with 3D printing and artificial intelligence. Just brilliant guy, brilliant entrepreneur. And he texted me a couple days ago because he's going to be speaking at some pretty big conference for engineers and electrical engineers and whatever. And he had to write his own, 3 or 4 sentence biography. He's like, I froze up. I don't know what to say about myself. And I'm like, yeah, that's a weirdly interesting dilemma that I run into in this space with artists, entrepreneurs, whatever, is that who am I? How do I want to present myself to the world? And it takes a lot of personal and professional development and asking yourself those hard questions. So for me, I finally settled on author, speaker, and creative director. Because it kind of encapsulates what I really want to be doing more. I want to be focused more on my writing and, connecting with people and also bringing creative direction to other people's projects and ideas and helping them come to life. And so that's kind of how I handled it.
You are a living, breathing work of art that's ever evolving, right?
Yeah.
And so you can continually check in with yourself along the way and in your life and say, is this true now? Because I went through a process in my own journey of becoming an entrepreneur, a businessman, and being well respected. And there was a time in my life when I was starting, when I came from Indiana and I was living in the Bay Area, and I was 19 years old and I didn't have a pot to piss in. And I would park down the street in my beater to go meet clients that were way wealthier than me, and I'm, stroking the check for lunch, and I could barely afford it, so I could, that sort of thing, because I knew that's what I wanted to be. And I ultimately became that, then becoming the artist, and then embodying that. And I went through the same part of transformation when I started working with others. And I was like, well, what's true today?
Right.
What's important? And what became important to me in this journey and in writing my own bio is, well, why is that important to you? Because from my process, it's like, well, this is part of the story. This is a story. This is a story. And it's only important because I want it to be important to you, for you.
Right.
And right in my story. So you can change that story along the way, but you truly have to embody it, because when you walk into a place and they don't know you, right? What's on your business card? They know by your vibration,
yep.
whether you're bullshit or not. So if you stand in your power,
yep.
and you know yourself to be this, they know you to be that too, because you're a blank slate to them.
Yep.
Right. And so you truly are that thing. I have a lot of people that only know me as an artist, only know me as a musician,
right.
or only know me as a healer. Right.
Right.
In these ways, because that's how I showed up in their life. All of them are true.
Right.
Right. All of them are true in that moment. Right. All of them are true because I embody all those things.
Right. Well, one of the coolest experiences, like once I first really decided, it was a couple years ago, where I had a copy of my first book, and so what I'll do is I'll take my books to these different events that I go to when I'm trying to meet new people and whatever. And so typical networking events, everyone's been to them, where it's like you stand up, you say your name, what your business is, a tagline maybe, and you sit down. And it's kind of like every conversation usually goes, what's your name? What do you do? It's like, we're so defined by what we do. And I always like to mix it up just to see what happens. I always like to ask people, what do you like to do? And the hilarious thing is how many people are just on autopilot, and they'll be like, oh, I'm an accountant. It's like,
right.
That's not what I said. And they kind of have this like moment of like, like tilt, they have to like readjust, and they're like, and it's funny and also kind of sad at the same time how many people I've asked that question who can't answer it, or they have to be like, oh, well, I like to watch TV, or whatever. And it's like they haven't kind of explored, really who they are and what they actually enjoy and what lights them up. But if you ask them whenever they were growing up, they could answer right away. And so much of that is kind of lost as I think, we get older and the world kind of shapes us and whatever. And Dee is watching right now. She said, oh, I love that, be who God made you, not who the world turned you into. Absolutely. And Amy Arnold Clements said Carl Hart. I don't know who Amy is, but thanks for watching. So, one of the so this is a really great intro, and I want to dive into here to some of the questions I have, because I think that there's a lot that we can unpack.
Sure.
But real quick before I do that, basically what I did was, and what I do now when I go to meet new people, and go to different events and stuff, like I'll stand up and I'll say, I'm Ryan, I run a design agency, and I have a podcast, and but I'm also an author. And then I'll hold my book up, or my books. And I did that. It was one of the first times I did it. I was super nervous, and it's like I was probably one of the youngest, if not the youngest person in there by 20 or 30 years, because there's not a lot of millennial business owners, if you haven't noticed. And so, but I stood up and I was like, I'm an author. This is my book. If it's all about how to overcome procrastination and get stuff done, And so I sat down, and this lady came over to me, and she introduced herself, and she said, hey, that's really awesome that you published a book. I have a client that I want to introduce you to. So long story short, that conversation, because I owned that and I held that book up, and she saw right then and there, didn't know who I was from a clean slate. That conversation led to me closing like a $26 or between a $26,000 and $30,000 deal with a client. Biggest deal I had ever landed up to that point, and they're still clients of mine to this day. And it's there's something really powerful about just leaning into it and owning it. And I know Brent's watching too, and it's been really cool. Brenton, one of his friends, started a webcomic last year. And so Brent's an illustrator. And so it's just been really cool just watching creators and artists nowadays. Like, we're able to collaborate and connect in such a way where we can champion each other. And I think that's really important. So for you, just a quick question to kind of wrap this little intro up. When you were in that cocoon stage, transferring from who you were into, I'm going to own this artist thing. Um, did you have people around you who kind of were supporting you and championing you, and how did that look and how did that play out?
Yeah, I did have some people that were supporting me and championing me, and it was really amazing when I had friends show up. Some were new, a couple were old, that saw me as this artist or heard me for the first time and related to me in the way that I was relating to myself. And I think that's the important part is the more you're embodying that for yourself,
Mm.
the more that people are going to stand in support of that. And it is important to have a little bit of insulation around you during that time.
Yeah.
Your friends and family, your chosen family, all of that can be your cocoon. Honestly, it's really a vulnerable spot for you at that time. I went through a period. I was really insulated. I felt amazing about myself. I felt in my power. I moved into another town because I was told that I need to be there to be a writer, right? And I went to Nashville for a bit. And a guy I was working with to produce me at the time said, "Well, we were trying to write. We never wrote anything. Ultimately, never wrote anything." But he was like, "Well, what's the point of writing anything if you can't write Imagine? I've written a bunch of songs, but if you can't write, Imagine." So that becomes like this pressure
Yeah.
of, okay, well, if I can't write a song, I can't write Imagine. What's the point? So then everything is going through that filter.
Right.
You start to question yourself. You start to deflate. You start to stop believing.
Yep.
So it's nice to have people around you that you support, that they support in that way and see you as you see yourself. Because there's going to be those moments that you go through as an artist to grow. And when you grow, you suck a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
You're like, okay, I got these 3 chords down on guitar and I got this happening. And then you go like, I want to go into scales. Whoa. And then you're like, I'm going to, implement these into songs. Well, you have a real sloppy moment
Yeah.
until you become great. And so during those times, there's a lot of self-doubt.
Oh yeah.
You the critic that comes back into your, who do you think you are to do this?
Right.
You're not good. Well, they weren't that good either at some point.
Right.
And most of the time.
Well,
So, but you have that and you start believing that unless you have some people around you that really support you. And I have some people that, Jesus, that have been around me, Ty and Terry and Ty and all these cats that I can think of that were just there, so that I could really gain my footing within myself.
and so on that, did you find, like, I know for me, at least there have been a number of times that to kind of encapsulate the whole conversation, it's like you kind of have to reinvent yourself periodically. And when you're doing that, you do have to essentially be your own biggest evangelist, and you have to, like you said, really lean into it and own that. But inevitably, it's almost like there's people who want you to stay the same, because when you lean into your power, it almost like makes them feel. I don't know if the word's inadequate, or I don't know if that's the right word, but do you understand what I'm saying? It's almost like you kind of have to be very intentional about who you surround yourself with, because otherwise you can almost like abort any of what you're trying to accomplish. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you start to change and you stop focusing on your last story,
Mm-hmm.
your past story, your drama, whatever it is. So the people that you've attracted, because that energy is going to attract the same energy.
Right.
So that person, you're not sitting at the corner bar bitching about something with anymore.
Right.
Right. you stop that process and you're focused on your future and you're living it as if. Now, if some people will fall out of your life, period. Some people will fall out of your life. But the amazing part is new people will show up in support of that individual that you're becoming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very cool. So for those who are watching or listening, I'm, especially if you're watching or listening on Facebook right now, we can see your comments. If you have any questions, you can drop them in there, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. This is awesome, Carl. Thank you so much for this. So another question I had, I think that. Yeah. Okay. So one of the common issues that artists, musicians, writers, business owners, and pretty much creators of any type run into is feeling like they're creatively blocked, almost like, whether it's writer's block or whatever, and they feel like they're just spinning their wheels, they're not getting anywhere. Maybe they have this idea of like where they want to be, or they see that point of that mountaintop experience, so to speak. But they feel like they're just not getting anywhere. So how do you handle that problem? What thoughts do you have on why it happens and kind of the best ways to navigate that?
Well, the way it happens is the way that you become stuck in your life. You have a tool belt that is the known for you. It's the people, places, things that you're aware of, right? And what you can't tap into when you're reaching for that tool belt is the unknown. And the unknown is the infinite possibility. That's the field. Right? So in order to play in that field, you have to shut down the mind of what you know. So for me, one of my tools is meditation for that, to silence the known and get into the stillness so that you can, the intention can link up with all of the infinite possibility, and then to be in the joy and the play. I read a book years ago called The Artist's Way.
Oh, excellent book. I'm reading it for the third time right now.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's a great one to get back into.
Yep.
And one of the things on there was artist dates.
Yep.
To get out and go and find something else. Okay, this is a good example. There's that. Can you pull up one of the photos?
Yeah.
Okay, there is a.
Which one?
The photo right before the flag.
Okay. So let me pull this up.
Where I'm painting? Yeah.
Yeah, so
okay.
Let me set this up here a little bit. I gotta maintain this illusion that we're in this digital set. We're not actually in a cartoon, folks. It's it's a green screen, if you haven't figured that out yet.
I like being in a cartoon.
Yeah. Okay, so this is actually a good segue. Even especially if you're watching the video of this podcast, everything about creativity boils down to layers on layers on layers. So even me, moving this window of Carl around, I can put him behind my head. I can, dance around a little bit. So go ahead, Carl.
Okay, so can they see this? You see this now?
Yeah, they can see it.
Okay, so I paint as well, and so I was working on this piece, acrylics, and it's just a piece I was working on, and I didn't know really what to do with it. It kind of got to this point, and I was stuck. I went out with my daughters, who are, children are great inspiration and great things for artist dates, and it's really wonderful when you go with them to play around, and we're out on Haight Street, rolling in and out of places. You can try on funky glasses and wigs and whatever you're doing, and really be childlike,
right,
and get the hell out of your own way for a moment, right?
Yep.
And be inspired. And so we ended up later in the day going to a store. My older daughter likes this store called Brandy Melville, and we went in there, and they give away stickers all the time. So they had stickers by the counter, and I saw them, and I grabbed a bunch of them, and I took them back to the house, and I started laying them on this piece, right? That became the next piece.
Oops.
Oh.
There we go.
There we go. So that piece ended up becoming this thing here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had all of these stickers. I don't know if you could see it very
Yep.
well, but I was putting stickers all over it, and then painted the flag over, faded the flag, and it became that statement, right?
Yeah.
Which became the art. Now I can get bogged down. I don't worry about it. I don't really, sell my art to date. It's just becoming more of a collection of stuff
Sure.
over time. And then maybe one day, who knows?
Well,
I don't
but
know,
that's the
right?
nice thing is you have a portfolio that you can always repurpose. You can always go back to and revisit.
Sure. And the reason I got into painting is because I was stuck as a writer, trying to write songs, and I
That's
couldn't
good.
write them. Right?
Yeah,
I couldn't
yeah.
write a man, and I was trying to, and I started filling up notebook after notebook after notebook and sound file and unfinished songs, right? And so you put my attention on this, right? And became a painter. Now I can look at this and go like, well, I wish I would have made the face better, and it sucks. And I can look at it that way. It sucks, right? And because of what it's not. But what it became is something else. So then what I originally intended, right? Because I let go for a moment,
Right.
and then muse shows up. I'm inspired. I move it into a new direction. It becomes this thing,
Right.
right? So if I want to recreate that, and now I know what I want it to look like at the end, it can become a better piece,
Right.
right? Start to do, or create over this or whatever, and let it become a better piece. It can evolve. It's layers, as you said.
Right.
So it's moving into another space. And the same thing with those songs, right? When I broke out of that, then those songs started becoming completed songs.
Right.
At another point, because I was no longer focused trying to fit with the tool belt I had. And then pretty soon I would collaborate with somebody else who was maybe a better musician, who played, my friend Chris, who plays trumpet and is jazz influenced, and he does a thing, and then I'm flipping through books and I go, boom, this hook, this verse, right? And then he combines it in a way that I haven't thought of.
Right.
It's new to me. It's a new possibility. It becomes a new song,
Right.
a new style,
Well,
possibly
and
new genre.
it's for me, I think that you really hit on something that has been such a transformative thing for my career as an artist and an author or as a musician, just all the different things. Like, people will say all the time, like, oh, well, why don't you just focus on one thing? It's like, I'm focused on creativity. It's not, it's like, I've heard it was, what's his name? Robert Rodriguez, the filmmaker. He did an interview with Tim Ferriss a number of years ago or something, and he basically had a lot of people that were asking him, you're a writer, you do movies, you play guitar, and all this stuff. It's like, why don't you just focus on one thing and get really good at it? And he's like, I am focused on one thing. I live a creative life. Like, when you apply creativity you can put it into anything. You can apply creativity to accounting and have better looking spreadsheets than your competition. You know what I mean? It's like there's so much that you can, like you said, play with when it comes
Right.
to playing with that creative muse and playing with the different elements of creativity, whether it's music or painting or collages, and but if you understand the layering concept, and if you understand that those little flashes of inspiration, it's like they come to you like a seed that you're the one that has to tend to, and so
Right.
this is a great example of that, and I think that
Right. Tending to the seed is an important aspect. If you go back to the beginning photos,
yeah, let's do that.
the girls are in the sand, right? Okay, making this thing in the sand. My book is called The Journey Home, and home is spelled H, Om, symbol E, and it's a heart sign. Becomes this thing, right? That becomes, that tank top where I'm drawing at the table, right? Okay, because I'm putting in the work. So you're inspired. There's the moment of inspiration, which is having it spelled this way with the heart around it, right? And then it becomes this, which becomes the next thing.
Let me switch over. Yep.
Where I'm laying it on the clothing, right? And I was playing at that time in yoga studios, and I was speaking in that from that space of transformation. And so I have a friend who's a manufacturer
Mhm.
out of Las Vegas. He prints and whatnot. So I had the clothing is the same manufacturer that do like Spiritual Gangster. So it's amazing clothing,
Sure.
and I put this logo on for yoga inspired clothing. And then I had a line. The next slide is like a, you know, a number of different pieces, which became my merch,
Right.
really. Right.
Yep.
But it was like one step leading to the other. It's like you have that moment of inspiration. You have that line that comes, right? But if you don't move with that,
Right.
you don't apply the work, then you're not a writer. You're a barstool dreamer.
Mm.
You're sitting there and you want
Do
the
you have
thing
a
to come.
have you written a song called Barstool Dreamer? Because that's a great.
No, but it's a line in the song.
Okay. I was gonna say that's a great line for a song.
Thank you. I did. Yeah, it's a line in the song that I wrote. But that's what you become, because it's you're going to talk about it for the rest of your life. That moment comes of inspiration, but unless you put the work, that's what makes a writer. That's what makes a musician. That's what
Right.
makes an artist. Makes an entrepreneur.
Yep.
Everybody has a freaking $1 million idea in their life, but when the person who puts rubber to road is the one who takes that thing to the finish line, right?
Right.
You have to do it. And you have to get past the hurdles. And you have to go through all this part of the process, but you have to work through it.
Right.
You have to take that little bit of inspiration, and then you have to do the work. You have to get up in the morning and put the pen to paper. You have to put your hands on the keys. And get some music together, and then those things combine, and pretty soon, like you said, you have a catalog of stuff. I went from wanting to write songs. I was singing songs or other people's songs, wanting to write songs, to write my first song, and now, I can do a full set with all of my original material.
Yep.
And I have original material that I've written because I had to get it out of my system, and I never played again.
Right.
And that may be repositioned at another time now with another producer or another thing, or for a TV show, for whatever.
Sure.
But now I have a ton of stuff, and I have stuff that, books and books of stuff that can become something down the line.
Well, and then the nice thing about it too is, especially, and I'm kind of a big systems nerd for this type of thing, where, over the years, it got to a point where I had to figure out, okay, what are some systems that will work for me to organize all of this, not in like a way that minimizes the creativity or gets like obsessive about the the system aspect, but more of a, how can I create an environment to really facilitate my portfolio. And so for me, like, I have a folder on my computer called portfolio, but then underneath that folder, within that one, it's like, video, music, writing, graphics, photography, all these different creative pursuits. And then within each one of those folders, I have, individual folders. So like we have a folder for our online store, because we did basically the same thing that you did here, which is really cool. It's like we started taking all of these original art pieces and partnering with printing partners and vendors, because nowadays, especially, like the gatekeepers of manufacturing they're just not even there anymore. And right. It's like, for us, it's actually cheaper for me as a business owner to design my own clothing, print it and order it from a vendor, because I get a discount, I get it at cost, and I get free shipping on it, and it's a tax write-off, because it's marketing for my business. So it's the same materials, like you said, as something you would buy in a big box store for $50 to $75, but it has my logo on it, it has my stuff on it. So when I go out, people are like, hey, that's a cool shirt, where did you get that? I can literally pull out a business card and be like, oh, it's from my online store, I designed it. And it creates this moment of connection that otherwise, like, if you're going out and wearing some famous brand or something, like, nobody thinks twice about it. But if you're wearing right. something that's yours, you kind of have taken it to that next level of, like you said, kind of resonating in your creativity. and there's just so many opportunities today. But if you don't put in that work, if you don't take action, if you don't set up systems and really act as if you are who you're saying you are, it'll just never happen. Like you say, you'll just be a barstool dreamer. So
Yeah, you're turning Maya into form.
yeah,
You're
that's
turning
great.
Maya into form. You're pulling the dream into the reality. And what makes it a reality is the more that you focus your energy on it.
Right.
The more you focus your energy on it, the more it's becoming into form. If not, it's just this illusion that never really comes. So each step you're taking is making it more tangible,
Mm-hmm.
more tangible. And then the universe begins to support you because then you start seeing it, you start believing it, other people start resonating with it, they
Right.
start showing up to support that,
Right.
right? They believe you can do the work, so they become your client,
Yep.
right? But it took going from this idea to creating the forms and function
Right.
to knowing it yourself for them to show up and you'd be able to deliver it. If not, you go like, yeah, hi, my name's Ryan, and one day I'm going to do this thing,
Absolutely. Well,
right?
it's kind of cool you brought that up. Actually, in my latest book, it was a republishing of a book that was done in 1910 called The Science of Getting Rich, and it's by a guy named Wallace Wattles, which is a hilarious name. But it's basically this book talks all about that. Like he says that so much of what we understand as reality starts as what he calls formless substance. And so the way I republished it because a lot of the language is kind of archaic and sounds bizarre in today's context. So what I did is I republished it. I almost like added my own translation to it to kind of make it palatable to people who might not have any concept of what we're talking about. But he talks about basically how to create something out of nothing and monetize those ideas. And he basically posits that there's two ways to really make money. There's the competitive method, which largely is what he says is responsible for a lot of the problems that we run into in the world, where it's like, you've made this thing and I'm going to make something like that so that I can take a piece of your pie, as opposed to the creative method, which is where you, like with your merch here, in your music, you're creating something that never existed before, and then putting a value on that, and then creating connection with customers, creating value for them that they're willing to pay you for. And so that's what this is all about. And if you're watching
Awesome.
or listening, you can get a copy of that at scienceofgettingrich.info. But one of the things that he says in there about formless substance, he uses this phrase over and over and over. And it got to a point over the years when I was reading it before I republished it, I was like, oh, formless substance really is like a blank canvas, an empty notebook, a blank piece of paper, a lump of clay. Like all of that is it's almost like Lego blocks of creation that you can, apply your mind to, apply your energy to, and then bring that into reality. And understanding that concept has been really probably one of the most key points of us doing what we're doing, running our own business, as artists, entrepreneurs, whatever. And so, for you talked about the, all the different tool belts, so to speak, that you have as an artist, as a musician, and how like when you've gotten stuck, it's almost like you kind of mentally shift into like another creative medium to realize, oh, for me to move this piece forward or this idea forward, I just needed a different tool, or I needed another idea, from some other place. And so do you have any thoughts on ways to kind of increase that in your life in general, other than obviously surround yourself with more creative people, but if for people who maybe have kind of pigeonholed themselves into, well, I'm just this, obviously you've expanded that into so many different arenas, and I'm sure that they kind of layer on top of each other and inform one another. So do you have any
Sure.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Surrounding yourself with new people, new ideas. If I sit at this table surrounded by the same people, having the same conversation, right? I'm going to have the same ideas because everything's just influencing each other.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody else comes in, it changes the dynamic. I'm sure you've been to a small gathering, a party, or whatever it is, and let's say there's 5 people there that you all know, and then some stranger comes in that you don't know. The energy of the space completely changes in that moment, right? Because their vibration is added into the room. And if they're a dynamic personality, they may raise the vibration of the space. If they're kind of a downer personality, they're going to lower the vibration of the space, right? Okay. More people come in, more opportunities for engagement. Okay. So stepping outside of the box that you've built for yourself, the cage that you've placed yourself in, you know, so that you can experience a new idea, a new thing, right? And that helps break you out of the space that you're in. I know for me, sitting in meditation, doing a practice of yoga or exercising so that you get out of your own head is helpful.
Yeah.
You know, anything that gets you out of that repetitive pattern and gets you into a new field so that you can experience a new idea. You know, my daughters, and the way I teach them, I don't teach them or ask them, you know, well, what are you going to be when you grow up? Because there are going to be many things, right? It's like, how are you going to be? How are you going to be? Disciplined, with integrity, you know?
Right.
Are you going to deliver in this way? Are you coming heart centered? Like, because all this is going to change. You're gonna take off layers and put on a different suit and show up in this way, and then take that off. You're going to be the student, and then you're going to be, you know, the entry level person in this field, and then you're going to be the boss, and then you're going to be an entry level in a different thing, and then you're going to be a mother, and then you're going to be a son. Be all those, right? So moving into how are you going to be? So experience something new, you know, break out of the box, go play, you know, get out of your own way. Don't take it so seriously.
Right.
Well, any of things, because, you know, the more you take it, if you take it too seriously and you dig in, you're going to end up having something. I have a completed book right here that I hate because the energy in it, right, is I have worn myself out in the process, right? So then it's just another thing, and then it's just another plaque on the wall. Great. You know, what's the plaque that you want to give attention to right now? You know, it's something new. It's something, you know, invigorating, you know, something inspiring, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you go about that? You go about that through new experiences and new play, right. You know? But you shut down your mind. That's where you get trapped into an old pattern, an old way of thinking. There's no expansion.
Yeah.
You know?
And Julia Cameron talks about this a lot in her book, The Artist's Way, that you mentioned before, and how, you know, we as artists, we have to keep that well full of new ideas, new songs, new photographs, new, you know, different things like that. And especially with the way the internet is now, it's like you have an infinite opportunity to connect with millions and millions of people all around the world, like a click away. I mean, it's fascinating to me. Like I was, and I don't know if he's still watching, my friend Dotun, he's in Nigeria, and I met him years ago. And so I was just having a conference call with him. We're working on some logo and design projects together. But the fact that I'm able to literally defy the laws of time and space instantaneously for basically the cost of having an internet connection. If you go to, you know, get free Wi-Fi somewhere, you don't even have to pay anything. And the opportunities that opens up, I don't think that a lot of people have really kind of meditated on that or really understand. It's like, you know, never before in human history have we as a species had so many opportunities right at our fingertips. And for me, you know, I've been around long enough, and I've seen a lot of intense things and had a lot of intense life experiences and seen a lot of loss. It's like, you know, life, I've heard it said, you know, obviously people say, oh, life is short, but life is also long. You know, all things considered, the life expectancy for most people nowadays is significantly higher than it was just 20, 30, 40 years ago. So it's like, like you said, how are you going to be? How do you want to spend that time? Because I've spent a lot of time around people on their deathbeds, and there's a few things that I've noticed. Number one, they never say things like, man, I wish I would have spent more time watching or reading the news. They never say, man, I wish I would have worked harder in a job that I hate. It's like they never say, I wish that I would have, bought a whole bunch more material stuff to just surround myself with. But what they say are things like, I wish I would have spent more time with people that I liked, with people, or, doing things that I enjoyed. I wish I would have spent more time doing X, Y, and Z. And it's one of those things where I don't want to get to that point with regret.
Right.
I want to be able to look back and say, wow, you know what? I left a legacy of creativity. I want to be able to say that I connected with people and I spent my time with people who I love, who I appreciate being around. And I want to be able to say that I, lived a life worth living.
Yeah.
And, that's obviously kind of existential there, but,
Well, but in the space that we're in right now, love and presence. If you could if you could have more love, give more love, be more present, these other issues are going to begin to drop away.
Right.
That we have, because if not, you're focused on this past, this story, and regret. Oh, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done this. And in that time that you could be present and creating something new, you're worrying about this so that you get down the line a little bit longer. And then you're worried about what just passed by,
right,
and seeing what could have been, and continue living that way through your entire existence.
Right.
So us as a people can become present and go like, we understand there was a lot of bad things. We understand that, the history, the story. We're choosing to be creators.
Yeah.
We're choosing to be present. We're choosing to lead from love now.
Right.
And don't say it can't be done because it's never been done before, because nothing's ever been done before until it was.
Right.
So let's begin.
There's a little mantra that I've kind of used recently, where just asking myself when I start kind of getting caught up in things that I can't control, or the past or whatever, just real simple. Am I here and now, or am I there and then?
Mm.
And that usually is enough to be like, well, that it's like you can figure it out really quick. It's like if I'm sitting on my phone scrolling and looking at stuff that was like, well, that sucks, I can't control that, that's really annoying, and then like you said, you kind of start creating this reality that largely is just coming from a screen. I mean, one of the reasons that I do this with all the green screen stuff is partially because when you do your own media and you create your own media, you are much more prone to be skeptical of things you see on a screen, because you know how easy it is to frame a shot.
Right.
But you also can learn to lean into it as a powerful creative tool to, like you said, manifest more love, manifest more empathy, compassion, these things in the world. And another aspect of the staying more present, I'm reading a book right now called Modern Mindfulness by Rohan, and I'm not going to butcher or try even say his last name. Brent, if you're watching, he'll probably put the book link in there. But one of the things that he talks about as pertaining to be more mindful and more present in today's hyper-connected society is this idea of just asking yourself, like, if my level of presence could be equated to a cell phone signal, how many bars of presence do I have right now in this conversation? It's like, am I making eye contact, or am I looking down at my phone, or am I trying to be somewhere else mentally? Am I checking out? And that has been a huge help for being able to remind myself, like, oh, I'm not present. I'm somewhere else. And just that little mental trick of, what's my reception level for presence? Is it 5 bars? Is it 1 bar? Am I on airplane mode? It's like that's been really helpful. So
I think that's huge. That's huge. And you mentioning that, this conversation, the amount of times that you'll say something and then my head goes, oh, I want to say this, but you're still talking.
Sure.
Right? So I have to become present again so that I carry on with the conversation, or else I'm going to miss everything else you're saying because I'm now stuck here in the past.
Interesting.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah,
and
we
so
all do.
I'm no longer relevant because you may be talking about something else that may have led into something else. You may have covered it. Right? So I have to keep becoming adjusted into the presence. I'm working with my father right now and teaching him meditation and skills within that. And I gave him a new meditation, and one of it, there's a Tibetan bell that rings periodically. And I said, well, what this does is when you're a beginner in this, everybody, I can't meditate, my mind goes, yeah, everybody says the same thing.
Yeah.
Everybody has the same problem. Okay. So your mind goes here, and that it's like the bag blowing in the wind. You notice it, but you don't attach to it. You don't chase it. It's there. It's like the thoughts come in. They're there. You just don't chase after them and attach them. You let them drift by. And so with him, I'm teaching him, the bell rings, and as your mind has went, a million miles away, and you're just stewing, that you go ding, oh yeah, present, focus on the breath.
Right.
I'm breathing. I'm here, I'm breathing, right? And then your mind will drift out. So having those tools that bring you back present, because a lot of times, people will be trying to call things in their life, right? They have intention for X, Y, and Z, but they plant in their head what it's supposed to look like. And it's based on their own story, their past, what they have in their tool belt, right? And so they're not present. They're standing in line at the store, and because they're not present and heart-based, they don't just connect with the person standing right in front of them, who may be the exact person that they're looking for.
Yep.
Or refer them into whatever's coming next, right? But they're thinking that it needs to look some other way, or they're so busy in their head that they're not present, and they miss all the things that are showing up around them to support them along the way.
Absolutely.
And life becomes easier as they become more present.
Right. And it becomes I think for me it was the thing that has helped, probably one of the biggest things has been realizing that, I don't have to attach myself to some outcome. Brent just said, you can't stop birds from flying overhead, but you can keep them from making a nest in your hair. Absolutely. And it's the same thing with your thoughts. It's the same thing when you're trying to bring something new into the world. It's like, if you're not open and receptive to that flow, it does become almost like stagnant water, where you can, same with, if you are constantly taking in all this input, all this information, all these ideas, all this, stuff from your past, all this stuff that people want you or expect you to be, but you don't have an output, that's how water stagnates. That's how swamps are formed, and it's like things don't have an outflow. And so being able to have some kind of creative outlet, some kind of, even exercise, meditation, all of these things that they're not rocket science, but a lot of people, it's not a daily practice. It becomes a thing where, I will do this when I've arrived. It's like you don't arrive. It's all a process. It's all a process.
Right.
So.
Right. It's doing the work of writing the book. It is getting out of your own way and not worrying about the end result, because you don't know
Right.
if that piece of crap that you thought is gonna be what actually spurs your career as an artist, right? Because it's different and it's whatever it is, right? You have no clue. So finish the damn song, finish the book, just do it. And what's out there, it's going to take care of itself. It's going to be its own thing, right? Go through the motions and do the work, finish the job, enjoy the process.
Right.
Enjoy, because one step is going to lead to the next step.
Right.
But if you do none of the steps, you stay still. in the swampy water.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Well, I mean, that's an hour. Like, I can still keep going for a little bit if you want to. Um,
Gonna bore everybody.
no, I'm not. But we got at least 7 or 8 people watching. So if you guys have questions or comments, go ahead and drop them in there. This has been really great. I'm really enjoying this. Um,
And it's interesting, one of the stories that was inspiring to within my own journey. I was in Nashville and I wasn't writing, and um, was walking outside in the rain, and the line came to me, gray skies, rain and lies, right?
Hmm.
A bad day coming on. And I was going through shadow work in my own life, my own healing journey, my own process. And I ended up writing this song, right? I had wanted to record because of much of my journey began as an artist and as a mystic in Taos, New Mexico, and wanted to record with some of the indigenous sounds from Taos Pueblo. So I had these intentions, and they ended up aligning where I had Robert Mirabal, who's a Grammy Award-winning flautist, who's been hand carving flute since he was a child from Taos Pueblo, record on my tracks, and it became this healing music, which was about healing, Dark Side of the Soul, and that ended up being one that I won, a Hollywood Music Award for. I ended up, it was supposed to be on a soundtrack, so I was up for a digital soundtrack, and I was up there with Breaking Bad and The Walking Dead,
Sure.
right? I won for best folk acoustic artist, and I had lost to The Walking Dead in best. So I'm up here with all
Right.
Bear McCreary is like one of the best soundtrack guys, and I hear this happen from the darkest point, right? But my deepest truth. Right. And I kept just following the steps along the way, and it became this thing.
Right.
I wasn't worried about it becoming this thing. I just stayed in my truth.
Right.
And was raw. And the raw, the vulnerability, the truth, that's where you connect, because other people share your scars.
Yeah. And being able to, especially if you look at the whole process, like you said, like it's a journey, or like you're climbing a mountain or whatever, that mountaintop experience, like that's just a few steps of that whole journey. The most of it is walking up and walking back down, or climbing up and climbing back down. There's an excellent book by a guy named George Leonard. He passed away a number of years ago, but he was an Aikido teacher. But it's called Mastery. I know Robert Greene has another one called Mastery, which is also very good. But one of the things that he talks about in this book, in this Mastery book, is how our culture especially is so obsessed with climactic experiences. And so the context he brings it up in is all the advertising that we see. It's like the person proposing. It's the the person getting the promotion, buying the new car. These like snapshots of our lives, when in the grand scheme of things, those are just very, very minuscule points. You get to the top of the mountain. I'm here. Or like you're driving the brand new pickup truck and you're hauling this big thing. It's like this, or you're winning the big game. Whereas most of our lives isn't the mountaintop, it's the plateau.
Right.
Most of the creative journey is the plateau, one foot in front of the other, and that there are these moments of significant growth. Maybe you add another string when you're playing guitar,
Right.
or I actually just picked up the guitar for the first time in years. I put it down because I had gotten frustrated with it. I know like a handful of chords. And then I ended up teaching myself how to play piano instead. But now going back to the guitar, because I know how to play piano and I taught myself, basic music theory and how to like hear the notes and really kind of, play those scales, it's actually become easier for me to just figure out the fretboard and whatever. But I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, it sounds pretty good with one or two strings, but like you said, as soon as I try to go beyond that, I'm like, I suck. This is terrible. So it's being able to recognize that that's all part of it. It's not about this constant pursuit of the new, the climactic experience. It's like, can you be okay with take one more step, take one more step, take one more step, and then when you're there, when you're on the mountaintop, when you're winning the award, you can sit there and be present and own it instead of what am I going to do next,
Right.
and
And that was a big challenge for me, uh, always in my life. I would succeed at whatever as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, as an artist, different jobs that I've had in life.
Sure.
Become top, salesperson or what. And it's like, okay, great, now what?
Right.
Yeah, and I would never linger in that moment of appreciate,
Right.
accept this moment, it's like reverence for, gratitude, it's really having gratitude for that and your journey. Right. And everybody involved, and it's like, you're right. That's the beauty in that is all the steps along the journey. You look back at all of these things, good or bad in your life, and it's like those moments in between,
right,
that is your life. It's not the snapshot of the award, it's the moments in between.
It's what it's what the award represents, really.
Yeah, totally. And it's those moments of anguish in between, or maybe what broke you through, that pressed the diamond from the coal. It's all of that stuff, and it's the juice of it. And it's like you look back and you go, thank you for all that bullshit. Thank you for all of that, because all of it was beautiful.
Right.
And if we come rotating through this spinning crystal ball one more time, that's probably how we do it. You get to the end and you're like, oh yes, I want to ride that again.
Right.
But while you're in it, you're like, I don't want to be on the roller coaster anymore. You get done, you go like, yes, you're flipping through the turnstile to get back
Right.
on that damn thing again.
Right.
Can you appreciate it while you're in it?
Right.
Can you be that while you're on it?
Absolutely.
And I think if you can get there, then I think the entire process is a lot more beautiful, and that beauty, resonates with others along the way too.
Well, and it's being able to, and say, I mean, it's kind of meta, because it's like you never arrive. You never are like, I'm always in gratitude. I'm always present. It's like, it's always a daily practice, and being able to really cultivate that as a daily practice, whether it's, meditation or exercise or creativity or, building a business or any of these things. For me, it's really always boiled down to, how you spend your days, how you spend your life. And yes. I've also heard it said, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So right. It's kind of like, all right, are you first thing when you wake up? For me, I have historically struggled. It's like first thing when I wake up, it's like, all right, well, I've got 17,000 inboxes to check now. It's like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, my actual inbox. I have, all these email addresses, like business things and whatever. And it's like, then you're constantly dealing with all the all the input from all these external sources. It's almost like I've heard it said too that, your inbox is a convenient organizing system for other people's agendas for you. And so it's like, how do you start your day? Do you start it with gratitude? Do you start it with meditation? Do you start it with your creativity? Do you do all of those things? How do you prioritize those things? And do you make those the most important things and then get to the other stuff? Because you can, you could spend so much of your day and so much of your life just frittering away on detail and things that ultimately aren't actually important. And
Sure,
then,
it's like in the same way that you save money, you pay yourself first,
yeah, absolutely.
right? And so you have to pay yourself first. You have to shore up. I know, today I started my day. I woke up at 5:30. I was in a walking meditation for an hour. The sun came up. I know my day is more powerful in that regard.
Yeah,
Because I then am in coherence with what my future self wants to be.
right.
And so I'm not just roaming around and going through the program of going to the coffee pot and doing this thing and flipping onto the Facebook and doing
Right.
and all of a sudden you're just in yesterday
Yep.
again, repeated.
Yep.
So I, to put this on as we kind of wrap up.
I know you had a song that you wanted to play too, so I haven't forgotten.
Oh, well, it's, I thought if it was relevant in there into the creative process,
Sure.
I thought, of how it came about. But in my book, and I don't know, did I put the in that file?
Yeah,
in
yeah.
there?
I'll pull it up right now.
Sure.
Let's see.
My book's called The Journey Home, and I go through a lot of this process in there of not only self-realization and discovery, but also these things as an artist that you go through, going through the soul searching, going through the shadow work. So I look back, this is a funny thing. I look back at some notes from an old computer that I had pulled up. And this is after I had written this book. This book I have, and if you want to find it, it's out there in Amazon and whatnot, or just come to my website.
Brent will probably put it on the in the comments here too. So
Okay, thank you. But I have the book, and there's also an audio book where I have my music on there. Okay. Now I was in the middle of recording the audio book when I pulled up this old computer to find some old files to download it. It's before I lost all these files.
Sure.
That, lost the computer. And I found notes on there, which was an outline for the book. And it was literally from the beginning of the journey that I talked about when I was sleeping, in this studio that became my rehearsal space, right? And I had the first chapters of this thing and talked about the music being put in there. I forgot all about that.
Wow.
And manifest into this creation. And I had this moment of, holy shit, like this was this idea that I even forgot that I had. And like the entire time, my higher self, the universe, was conspiring to make this so and to bring it into form.
Right.
Because I was taking the steps along the way, each step that made this so.
Right.
And then one day you wake up in your new story.
Yep. We were in. We actually stopped at there's a new coffee shop here in town, and they actually put on the wall they got like a the sticker kind of print that you can cut out and stick on a wall, that kind of thing. But I believe with the phrase that they put like really big on the wall, which I was actually thoroughly impressed that they'd done it. It literally just says, you are the hero of your own story. And that's, being able to lean into that and own that every step of the way is I think one of the hallmarks of really leaning into your creativity is like owning, like we've talked about several times here, is just owning that story every step and knowing that you have this vision in your mind of what it might end up being, but it usually ends up being better than you had initially anticipated.
Right, because it's better because you couldn't have painted it this way yourself.
No.
You look back and you go, oh, that's right, I needed to go through the process of the shitty show. I needed to go through the process where things technically went out, so then when that big moment arrived, I knew how to handle it.
Yeah.
If it had been awry, I knew how to handle this in this way. I knew how to handle fame, let's say.
Sure.
I have a friend who's relatively famous and plays the big crowds and all that. And he's such a beautiful heart with people because he's seen this journey with others. He's been on this himself. And it's like, wow, what a beautiful way to show up when it arrives
Right.
for you. You're standing grounded and firm in this. Then you can walk, around and observe, the mountaintop for a moment, and a beautiful thing, because then at that point, you're in a way grabbing others to bring them up with you.
Right. Well, it's
Right?
you're blazing a trail for them, the people
Yeah.
that come behind you, and then you can say, hey, I see what you're trying to accomplish, and if you'd like, here's some thoughts for the journey. Here's some, maybe not necessarily a map, because everybody's journey is going to be different, but you can share principles. You can share lessons that you've learned along the way. And so that's
that's what inspired me to write this book in the first place. It was to share in this story, right? To bring completion to that segment, to that new story, and so that others may find a little comfort in those moments, may find some inspiration, may find some tools that are useful.
right.
And one of the most amazing things to me was I did a Barnes and Noble a signing, and I spoke and performed one, and someone came up to me to sign the book that they already had, and it was dog-eared.
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and the thing is, I never even imagined I'd write a book, in my day. I don't think, and to have somebody come up and it's like, yes, that's the reason I did this in the first place.
Right.
That's where I want to be. It's like, if I can just touch one person, if I can just touch one person with the song, if I touch one person with these words, that's why I'm saying it in the first place. If not, I'm just going to shut the hell up.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool, sir. I really appreciate the time.
Appreciate it.
We've covered a lot of ground here, and I'd love to have you on again sometime. I'm sure we could continue expanding on some of this stuff. Just to kind of wrap things up here. First of all, if anybody has any comments or questions, go ahead and drop them, and we'll in the comments here, and we'll get to them before we hop off. But some of the last question that I usually like to ask is, if there are any other pointers or tips that you'd like to share, things that you've learned along the way. And if not, if you feel like we've covered kind of the majority of them, I mean,
I would say we have. I would say trust in the process.
Yeah.
Trust in the process, because a lot of time, it's the only thing missing is time.
Yeah.
So don't get caught up in the illusion of time.
Right.
You're trying to get from here to here, and you're asking the universe to, conspire to bring you to this point. It already is. So don't get caught up in the fact of it's not here yet, because you're always a step away, right?
Right.
And all you need is time. So don't worry about, I'm too old, or this ain't going to happen yet, or just stay present in the process and linger a little longer in the uncertainty.
That's good. Dotun in Nigeria said, rushing from breakthrough to breakthrough is no different than being a drug addict. Life is not only in the peaks.
Very well.
True words, sir.
Very good.
You said linger a little longer. What was that? You said linger a little
in the uncertainty.
In the uncertainty. That's good. Okay. You mentioned The Artist's Way. Any other books that you would recommend? Obviously yours.
That I would recommend. I go through processes of diving into things. In my past, when I was desiring to be an executive and an entrepreneur and a businessman, I read every entrepreneurial book, and The Millionaire Next Door, and the Laws of Power, and
Sure.
everything that I could absorb. And then I went through points that I've read, the Tao and the Bhagavad Gita, and Autobiography of a Yogi is one I highly recommend.
Okay.
I'm actually re-listening to that right now and rereading. So I'm in the process of reigniting some things.
Sure.
And I'm rereading Oneness by Rasha is another one that I'm reading right now.
Okay.
So, I'm at the place in my life that I'm not really looking for the external tools
Sure.
in the belt,
Sure.
but the internal tools.
Makes sense.
So I'm looking at some things that I've implemented in my life that are powerful, that worked really well, that I've moved on, that I may want to look at again.
Right.
Because you go, oh yeah, I was doing that.
Right.
That was powerful. I had that front of mind. That was really activating change in my life. And all of a sudden I'm called to look at that again for this point in my life with new eyes.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay. Well, that's pretty much all I had then for today. We did have someone in the audience asking you to play the song, so if you would like to pull that up, you have an audience request, even if it's just a little bit.
Okay, this is a song. This is a song that I haven't recorded, and we were talking about just the artistic process. Mm-hmm. So I'll give like a few bars of it.
That'd be great.
So do you have that cover?
Which one?
Golden
Light. The Golden Light Cafe. Yeah. Okay. So give us some context for what we're hearing here.
So here's the context. When I was learning to write, and I was driving between Las Vegas and Nashville, and I had slept in my car that night, actually, outside of Amarillo, and I stopped at this place called the Golden Light Cafe, and this is actually just a shot of the menu from when I was there, and I was at that point where I was wanting to write, trying to write, and we were talking about when the muse strikes you, the inspiration strikes you. And I looked around this place, and this old diner, old 50s diner, where, the woman with the beehive hairdo is in the corner, who probably been serving since she was 14 years old, and the paint is older in there, and there's old photos on the wall. And I had a thing that like a line that came out, and I was like, man, I want to write a song about this place. And I hadn't written many songs. I think I'd only written a couple at that point. And so I drove through to Nashville, spent my time there. I was back in Las Vegas, and I was at a gaming bar at about 1:30 in the morning talking to a manager there who was really a funny guy, who talked about wanting to be a comedian, always wanted to be a comedian. And here he is, and he was telling me this, and there I am, still stuck in the bar. And that's a story with a lot of people. And of course, like anything else in my art, there's a part of me in every song in this. So this is how it came about when I got out on my own way, because I started writing based on that story, and it became this. Porcelain doll is beautiful at the age of 43. Tan lines from the neon sign left her faded with her dreams. She was gonna rust there like the city limit sign, stuck somewhere in neutral between the bourbon and the wine. The time goes by getting ready to fly, living too afraid to fall. With an autumn frost, a whole life lost, just a photo on the wall. You let your dreams fall apart, and it seems they slowly fade away. That clock just sticks on Route 66 and Golden Light Cafe. So there's a remainder of the song, but I wanted to give you a little taste of that's how that came about.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you, sir. That was really good, and I'm glad that my Adobe software decided to give a little ding there right at the end, so it didn't completely interrupt you. So that's good.
Awesome. I knew.
Yeah.
That's why I stopped.
No, it was great. So you said you haven't recorded this one yet?
No, it's one of those. I've written a bunch of songs. I have a bunch recorded, part through all of this,
Sure.
demos or whatnot. And I haven't decided what I wanted to do with my next project. These songs came through for the book. I have something in the hopper with the book right now.
Okay.
I'm excited about that. Some of these songs, may be used for. So I don't know what I want to record and an actual finished project right now,
I see.
and or how I want to do it. So until I do,
Hmm.
I'm just going to keep stepping forward.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, I think that'd be. I would love to hear a recorded version of that sometime. I think that there's a lot of power in that story. Just there's a lot of different themes in it that I think could really reach a lot of people. So cool, man. Well, thank you so much for your time and all your insight. This has been really great. It's definitely one of my favorite episodes of the podcast so far. Is there anything that you would like our listeners to know about, how to follow you, that kind of thing?
I've been terrible on the digital format, and I'm trying to change that in the new year. But if you want to go to my website, it's carljohn.com.
Okay.
I'll have events on there. Sign up, get a taste of the audiobook, the music on there. Just go ahead and sign up in that, and I'll send you information or inspiration or whatnot along the way. And I don't do it too often, so it won't um, you know bog down your email box.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, guys. So this is a great episode. Thank you guys for watching, for listening, wherever you're watching or listening. If you're watching live, if you could do me a huge favor and drop a comment in the Facebook feed and just write #live. It helps me just kind of serve you guys better and create content. If you're watching the replay, just write #replay. And then I'll be able to just have an idea of who's watching live, who's watching replays, and that kind of thing. So I'm going to do a little spiel here for those of you who haven't already heard it. If you are interested in learning how to manifest and monetize your ideas, definitely go to scienceofgettingrich.info. I poured a lot of time and a lot of energy into republishing this book. I've got a lot of commentary on the creative process, as well as resources for entrepreneurs, artists, business owners, startups, and aspiring business owners, as well as areas to take your own notes and things like that. Also, if you are interested in building your own brand and really leaning into owning your creativity and owning a brand identity that you're happy with, that you're happy to put on clothing and wear around, go to logos.reformdesigns.biz. We've got branding packages there. And last but not least, if you go to reformdesigns.biz/VIPs, you can sign up there and you'll actually get a free copy of my first book and workbook combo in digital format. And that is all about how to overcome procrastination and get stuff done. The book is called Stop Wasting Time and Burning Money: How to Crush Procrastination and Live the Life of Your Dreams. So that's about it for today. I really appreciate all of you guys and everything that you've contributed, all your feedback. If you have people that you would love to see on the show, just send me a message, send me an email. You can go to our website at reformdesigns.biz and contact me there. So Carl, again, sir, thank you so much for your time, your energy, and